So I did my assessment tool presentation on the spelling inventory assessments. And the spelling inventory assessment is a great way to quickly assess our students' knowledge of words and the component of words. Teachers find these assessments really helpful because they're really easy to give and they're really easy to analyze, and they can show where our students are struggling, whether this is with short vowel sounds or blending consonants, just for an example. There are 3 different word lists for the spelling inventory assessments. The first is the primary word list, and this is generally for grades kindergarten through 3rd. And then there is the elementary, which is generally for 1st through 6th grades. And then the upper level, which can be used for 5th or 12th grade. The lists are ordered from easiest to hardest, so when you're giving the assessment, the first 5 words are going to be easier words, and then as you progress through the assessment, the words are going to get harder. Unlike the weekly spelling tests that a lot of people use in class, the assessments are not for grading. So it's really important to tell our students that it's just to do their best, that it doesn't matter if they get a few wrong or if they don't know how to spell in the words. It's just important for them to do their best, and it's okay to tell them that we're using this to further our instruction so I can help you become a better speller. So how to give the spelling inventory test is students are going to number their paper just like they would for a traditional spelling test. For younger students, this might be something that you already have prepared for them, but older students can obviously do this themselves. Then you're going to read off the word and then say it in a sentence, and that actually comes already prepared for you or provided for you by the spelling inventory assessment. This is located in Words Their Way in the appendix. And then you're going to say this sentence and then say the word again. And then make sure that you give your students ample amount of time to write the word on their paper. And a really important thing to make sure you're not skewing the data is to make sure you say the word naturally and not draw out any specific sounds or syllables and break the word apart in certain areas, because you don't want to give them any clues to how it is spelled. This makes the data more reliable. Another great thing about the spelling inventory test is that you can give the test to your whole class at the same time as long as you have guards up so that there is no copying. And if you do see that students are copying, just make sure you write on that test and that you think they might have been copying, and because obviously that makes the test not very reliable. If a student is feeling particularly anxious or nervous, it might be best to administer the assessment individually, and that also goes back to a lot of the articles that we've been reading on why it's important to know your students and know where their frustration level is and whether or not it's best to admit the test individually. There is a scoring method that Words Their Way has that illustrates how to score the spelling inventory, but I think it's mostly important to analyze the actual written words that your students have written during the spelling inventory test, to use that to make connections in between words and the words that they spelled incorrectly. Finding patterns in the spelling errors is the most important thing that we can do to drive the instruction. For example, the spelling inventories could show a student needs work, like I said, on short vowel sounds or on blending consonants. Through the spelling inventories, you can then look for patterns within the student and then as the class as a whole, and that can help you drive your instruction and focus on a few of the struggling patterns that you see within their spelling, and this can really help focus your lessons on more specific goals that you know your students are struggling with, instead of just guessing on what a lot of students struggle with. You can actually tailor your lessons to the students that are in your class. Some researchers say that spelling and working on spelling worries too much on the focus of making sure that we're doing it right, and it's not worrying about understanding the text and comprehending the text. But I think that spelling and reading go hand in hand, and because spelling has to do with understanding sounds, making spelling influences reading fluency, which therefore influences comprehension. I believe that these spelling inventory tests are a great way to drive instruction in the classroom and then can gain insight into students struggling. And I have given a few of these assessments one during my tutoring video and also during my block placement, and they were very helpful in pinpointing where my students are struggling, or if maybe they really surprised you and they were moved up into one of the upper level, and that really helps us see where our students are at, and we might be surprised by some of the words that they can spell, and that really gives us a huge insight into their knowledge about spelling and about phonemes and words and blending sounds. The spelling inventory tests are also a great way to see a student's growth within the year. A lot of teachers give these spelling inventory tests 3 times throughout the year, once at the beginning of the year, in the middle, like in January, and then again at the end, and it really can show the student's growth because you'll be using the same words for each of the assessments, and as long as you're not allowing your students to study the words, it should really show the student's growth throughout the year. Lastly, to make the spelling inventories the most successful and to gain the most from them, I think it's important to understand what the purpose of the spelling inventory test is. It's not going to tell us about comprehension, it's not going to tell us about reading fluency, at least not directly, but it is going to tell us about how students spell and how they can blend phonemes and how they can read those written words. And in the end, that does reflect how they are going to read and how fluent they can read, and then how much they can comprehend, because we have to remember that if they're focusing mostly on decoding words, they're not going to be able to focus on what the words mean that they're actually reading. So in the end, I think spelling is really important, and these spelling inventory tests is a great, quick, easy way to check that, and I would really recommend giving them in the future. Thanks for watching.